Get woke, go broke has always been a funny buzzword phrase that slowly has lost its weight due to the misuse of the slang term woke, despite some past legitimate instances of the term that sorta now has to be retired due to the misuses becoming far too common. And man, Assassin's Creed Shadows is a pretty great example of that term being misused, as the game got called woke for the quiet part out loud reasons of a black protagonist, where all the mostly white far-right channels suddenly became Japanese historians overnight and lied and claimed Yasuke wasn't a samurai, as they grasped for straws with the smaller minority, one or two Japanese people that they picked out to agree with them and validate their biases towards that skin tone. Yet fucking political channels talking about this shit as if they had any stake in gaming when it's clearly just a grift that happens with race usually being the outlier. For example, gay relationships in AC Shadows were a reported thing, and they were screaming it through the roofs before it was even a confirmation, long before release. And to give credit this time, it was actually there, as an optional feature, and sure, it's a good thing that it's optional, but I honestly would still say that it shouldn't be there for a place that holds traditional values, but whatever. It's an M-rated game, where it's optional, similar to Mass Effect, Cyberpunk, and Baldur's Gate, unlike another game I'll get to later. But anyway, what proves that the black race was likely the outlier to its blowback is that the past Assassin's Creed games like Odyssey, and the last game with White Vikings, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, also had optional gay romances, and yet it only got heavily mentioned and dunked on with multiple videos when black entered the equation. I'll get to more examples later, but anyway, I won't pretend to independently know Japanese history because unlike these far-right channels or even far-left channels, I won't pretend to know shit that I don't just to try and fail to prove some bias. I may call myself the supreme intelligence sometimes, if that's when I'm talking about something I absolutely know. Nobody knows everything. But anyway, beyond others nailing that Yasuke was an actual samurai, others have depicted Yasuke as such in various other forms of media, like an anime even. But the right decided to only raise an eyebrow at it when it was something tied to a fairly Western market in the modern day, where clowns are calling anything woke, such as the Penguin. But anyway, all this drama aside, Assassin's Creed Shadows isn't doing badly at all, whether it be sales or reception, despite some anti-woke slop channels that are probably looking to stick to their guns and call the sales bad regardless of it not really being true. Because it's too late to backpedal now, and now they have to double down. I've had my hardcore Assassin's Creed enthusiast Sweetest go through it as he streamed it on Discord, and yeah, it played fine, and this is what he had to say in his words. Start quote. I think the new Assassin's Creed is probably the most depthful and satisfying Assassin's Creed as of late. Now unlike the other recent Assassin's Creed games, actually feels like an assassin. The addition of proning adds a decent amount of new opportunities, especially on expert difficulty, where the roofs are not safe to hide on, making you think of more creative ways to infiltrate, instead of having a main character that is a jack of all trades, master of all. They have a very rare mechanic that's not seen in many games where you can switch characters deciding whether to be a combat enthusiast or a stealth enthusiast, whereas in Valhalla, the protagonist never used stealth before in an Assassin's Creed game. The combat mechanics are probably the hardest to grasp, especially on expert difficulty. I thought Yasuke was going to be easy mode for Shadows, but I was wrong rushing into a place and having what would seem like a never-ending gauntlet of enemies. When you can die in a few hits, it's hard being precise with the parries and not dodging an unblockable attack. It's hard to keep track of when you're surrounded by enemies. Shadows is hitting on all cylinders. The game looks beautiful. The passion and detail they put into Yasuke is something I haven't seen in a long time. Sometimes people would look at Yasuke because of his skin tone as you walk by random NPCs, or they would bow to you just because you are a samurai. The voice acting is phenomenal in immersion mode. If you don't play with immersion mode, I suggest you turn it off. The animations are good except for sometimes where in-game cutscenes would rush facial expressions, kinda losing the moment. The soundtrack is beautiful and I plan on listening to it completely soon. End quote. But anyway, there you go, an actual mini review that actually talks about gameplay instead of just calling the protagonist black and a whole slew of other excuses for criticism, like a HUD, or so-called racist pop music apparently being used for Yasuke when it ended up being used for both characters. It's a brain rot take anyway. Oh no, it's catering to a genre of music that black people or maybe even general people enjoy. Generally. These people on the far right act just as sensitive as the people on the far left that they roast for being sensitive. And AC Shadows will go down as the biggest example of that I can name. Hence this video that isn't gonna let any of that shit slide. I miss when people actually talked about gameplay, but I swear less than 20% of gamers can actually comprehend and criticize that, and most of those types of gamers are honestly people who play multiplayers, unlike the others that can only see narrative aspects and other superficial details that can be quite petty, as I've just mentioned.
Why are you blocking? Oh, this bitch sucks. Oh, God.
I've heard one of the far right channels like Synthetic Man call Now Way Ugly as a woke jab towards the game, as if anyone who gets any play thinks this is ugly. This is some down bad gooner shit of someone who actually doesn't talk to women in real life. And I don't even like having to say that, because dumb bots say the exact same shit for legitimate ugly cases like ugly as fuck Mary Jane from Spider-Man 2, who actually doesn't look like a woman, or the woman they hired for motion capture, unlike AC Shadows, where the woman looks recognizable as a character and they actually made her look younger and prettier, unlike this shit show game. People who are normal, don't call music racist, or have such P-Hub beauty standards to the point of calling this above average beauty woman ugly. Go outside, touch grass. But anyway, with all that out of the way, I have to say that the term get woke, go broke doesn't really apply in most instances or has any consistency. AC Shadows had a hard hate campaign that got the game called woke, and yet it did well beyond what I've already talked about. There's pieces of media that actually got woke in a bad, detrimental way that gets them banned in countries that actually hold traditional values instead of just pretending to, like countries within the continent of Africa, China, and every Arab territory that didn't go broke at all, even though it honestly deserves to. Beyond Barbie, we have Spider-Man 2. Not only did it have various pride flags that I could maybe look past, but it had a whole gay side mission where Spider-Man would help a gay kid, ask out another gay kid, and that side mission was necessary to progress within the game, as it wasn't optional in terms of 100% beating the game and unlocking everything, such as a religious Hispanic area like Puerto Rico having its suit locked behind the mission, all within a game that is pretty much a kid's game, as all but 2 Spidey games released from the PS2 era and onward have been rated E. So any bot can please shut the fuck up about using a teen rating as a shield excuse for it not being a kid's game, when everyone has likely played a rated T Spidey game before the age of 12, or even 10 or 8, etc. People generally don't go off of ratings unless the game is rated M. But anyway, I've already nailed that game with 2 amazing videos before. But my main heavy hitter point that I've said before is that AC Shadows got way more videos calling it woke right away before it even released than Spider-Man 2 ever did after it released. It got a few, such as 2 from me, since that shit show game actually deserved it for targeting kids, but it did not get as much as AC Shadows did, because these far-right grift channels don't even truly stand by their so-called principles at all. As said before, shit like race is clearly the outlier if AC Shadows gets roasted more for so-called woke shit than Spider-Man 2 did, and I'm not about to let these people deny it with what's clearly pussy-ass closet racism. The term get woke, go broke only really applied to that 2018 or so Gillette scenario where they took a heavy hit, or Bud Light, or some other corny movie like that Ghostbusters reboot, etc. But outside of those instances, it barely has any consistency of things losing money because they did socio-political shit, whether it deserved to do badly or not. Just to take this message home, I'll go beyond games for a moment, where once again, race is clearly the outlier when you have shows like Rings of Power and Acolyte getting hard dug into for being socio-political and woke, when Rings of Power had none of it beyond race swaps of fictional creatures. And if that's enough to get you called hard woke, then I guess an old as fuck, well-received movie like Batman 1989 was woke for race swapping Harvey Dent. Then there's Acolyte, which did insinuate a lesbian relationship lightly, which admittedly was something to actually work with a little that time, only for that particular Star Wars show to get hard focused on when Andor did it first to a debatably heavier degree, with 2 non-black characters that coincidentally didn't get bashed as much. I'm sure people will move the goalpost and dodge a quiet part out loud and say the writing for a show that they likely didn't watch as they copied and pasted the sped as fuck subtle racist critical drinker points, as that special needs hypocritical ass clown didn't talk about the message for the boys that his dumbass took till French Kissing Season 4 to realize that the show targeted conservative or religious traditional values since the 5th episode of Season 1, where they bluntly attacked Christianity and had one of the protagonists give up on her religion because of corporatization, and they also mixed it in with some jabs of religion not allowing homosexuality as one of the main reasons she ceased her religious faith. Not to mention things getting even more blunt with each season, such as Season 2, which was super blunt with its conservative attacks, and you dumb fucks can argue a quotation by the main actor with this article. Like, I'm not even calling The Boys a completely horrible show, as there's some good moments like the rivalry between Homelander and Butch, or the show attacking some aspects of far-right racism, but my point is that there's some clear as fuck double standards with morons who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and have the most atrocious consistency I have ever seen on the internet, only being robbed by morons bashing Snyder DC for the slightest trace of comic accuracy, while the MCU often pulls more character 180s. That's another bad drinker take, by the way. But anyway, I've seen people like what I'm about to explain, but if you played and accepted Spider-Man 2 or watched multiple seasons of The Boys without calling out their shit, then you honestly have no fucking right going after anything else with labels of woke. You're a fucking bot joke hypocrite, incapable of thinking for yourself as you regurgitate shit off of YouTube. Your brain is of less use than a summer ant, a worm far beneath any significant notice, a severely insignificant gnat who should just lie down on the fucking road during rush hour. Kill your... Just shut the fuck up. I'm sick and tired of running into loathsome humans wherever I go, at every turn of the internet. But anyway, an expansion on that tangent could be found in this full video I made ages ago before the release of AC Shadows. Hell, the subtle quiet part out loud BS on Star Wars Acolyte is one that I still want to double dip on since the show wasn't done at the time of me making that video. But anyway, this Assassin's Creed Shadow scenario just really has me thinking about how much has changed or declined in Western culture, a decline in critical independent thought, progress in how illogical, unprovoked racism was reduced from the years past only for it to become something far more pussified and hidden behind 12 anti-woke videos on individual pieces of media, and terms like DEI that nearly only gets used for black people, even in random instances of them just existing. Like things that aren't even race swaps, like Captain America 4 getting hard focused on for total uncoincidental reasons when the MCU has made less thought-provoking movies on a consistent basis even before Endgame, despite some exceptions. Or hell, they even briefly tried and failed to give Black Panther the hard label of woke only for it to totally prove the quote of "get woke, go broke" by being the 6th highest grossing superhero movie ever. Shit's just a desperate joke by bundling a term hijacked by the LGBTP and then using it for the mere sight of black people or even other minority groups, when most LGBTP behaviors are done in white countries by white people, as opposed to other countries in Africa or even other black countries outside of Africa. Hispanic territories, definitely every Arab territory, and even a largely atheist country like China, who don't tolerate that shit. I'm by no means roasting my dad by saying most or even a quarter of white people, of course, since those types of people are still an extreme minority, regardless of companies or dumb college indoctrinated Western bitches advocating for it. I guess you can blame a certain other group for these problems that far right white people like to hypocritically treat as a completely separate group that isn't white, even though you can't really see the difference between them in a decent amount of instances. But I've already said too much. Let's just say that another double standard is that nobody separates black into different categories for the most part, only for the rules to hypocritically change just so they could dodge accountability in regards to the... But anyway, I'm glad some people are starting to call out grifts in the instances that the problems aren't there, to the point of these people having to hide their bullshit by using terms like woke and DEI less, because such prejudice and illogical thoughts belongs in the fucking shadows.